guys, today we have Shaun Thomas Gibson. He is a really good friend. I've known him for years and years. And Shaun, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? I just introduced you as a friend, but tell us what you do and so on.
I'm a Emmy award-winning makeup artist, mostly television and film, um, and a wide range of stuff. I do a lot of beauty. I won an Emmy for Pose, a TV series that it's a Ryan Murphy TV series. Heavy beauty, but I also do like a bit of special effects, particularly on the show that I'm on now. I'm on Law and Order, Organized Crime. So we're doing, beauty, straight makeup, special effects as well. A lot of cadavers on the cop show. Um, yeah, so and that's what I do.
Why don't you tell us how this started? What happened? Why did you decide makeup? I mean, you're a good looking guy. You could have been a model, right? So why not the model
I mean, I tried that for a little bit, and it's not too late. Ejaz, what are you saying?
part?
Can still do it. Can still do it. Um, but I started off as I grew up. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I grew up in um uh an area, a part of Baltimore that doesn't even exist anymore. It was the Flag House projects, like sort of right outside of Little Italy, next to the water. And my mom, I think she knew that like I had an affinity for the arts, and they put me in a lot of creative things as a kid, but what stuck was visual arts, painting, drawing. Um, I always had a fascination with makeup. I think I started out more with like special effects kind of a thing. I remember being a kid and watching Michael Jackson Thriller, and my mom being like, I'm like, wow, how did they do that? Like he turned from like a man to a wolf, and my mom's like, oh, that's makeup, and I was sort of blown away at that time, like, oh, the things you can do with makeup. Um, so they kept me in art programs, and then fast forward to high school, they got me into a performing arts. It's a performing arts high school, but they also had a visual arts department as well. The Baltimore School for the Arts. Um, Shout out to all my BSA alumni. It's a lot of us out in the entertainment field. That's a joke at Law and Order. As that the and we always run into actors from my school. So the joke at Law and Order is always like, "Oh, you went to high school with Shaun. You must have went to high school with Shaun. If you're from Baltimore and you are in entertainment, they assume." But a lot of them, went to school with me, or after me or before me. Anyway, um, so I did that, and as soon as I got out of high school, I jumped to college in Philadelphia, and I just went to like a random art institute because I didn't know. At this point, I'm thinking I'm going to be a painter or a photographer, or uh, I got weird whole nother life. I still think about maybe I should have done if I should have done that, but habitat, habitat like interiors for like zoos and aquariums, and I just thought I wasn't gonna make money as a painter, so I went to school for design. And around that time, I was living with two guys who experimented with drag, and I had a lot of like girlfriends, and I just sort of, would watch them do their makeup and just picked up on it. And my sculpting instructor, I remember him saying, "Look, I found out that you've been doing all the girls' makeup for their presentations and stuff. They told me it was you doing it. Why don't you consider a career in makeup?" I thought it was crazy, but nothing else really sort of interests me. I didn't, I'm one of those creators that like I have to be sort of fully invested in something creatively to do it. Like I have to actually like it. So the thought of being a designer and sitting in front of a computer didn't appeal to me. Um, so after college, I kind of like, dawdled around, twiddling my thumbs, trying to figure out what to do. I took my sculpting instructor up, and I did start doing makeup in Philadelphia on a retail level. I picked up a few local gigs. Anything I could do to just sort of get the work in, and get the practice. The retail part was good for that. Um, and I think maybe like I think this is like around 2006 is when all my friends from Philly, they're transitioning and moving on to other things. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just take a crack at New York. And with only a job and no place to live, I just came to New York. I kept my apartment in Philly and I was going back and forth. I would set my schedule up so I would have 4 or 5 days there solid. I'm sleeping in my best friend's like room in a brownstone with like 5 other people or couples living there. They were like, it was insane. And I'm in a closet with a futon when I first moved here. But I had a job working at my first gig here. I got scouted by Becca Cosmetics. And while I was working at a King of Prussia mall, they said, "Do you want to come to New York and be you know basically a salesperson, one of the makeup artists at the counter at Bergdorf?" And at the time, I didn't know where Bergdorf was, um, and didn't realize like the level of where I kind of just got thrown into. I think my second week, I was doing like press things for the brand, working as a contributing editor with like Allure and O, and I had no idea what the hell was going on. And I can barely do makeup at this point, but the artistic, oh, I could because I could always paint. But I will say for me, I don't think I flourished artistically until I moved here and I was surrounded by the creatives, and then that's when that flow of information started, and everything just sort of picked up from there. I started doing. I met Ejaz, doing shoots for Ejaz. And Ejaz would punk me and prank me and make me do ridiculous things on set. And I thought that's what you had to do to survive in New York as a makeup artist. Meanwhile, Ejaz and all the assistants, you guys cracking up.
So I met you at a shoot, and we were shooting. I believe the shoot time was 12 o'clock at night. That's
It
when
was
we
late. Yeah,
started to shoot, and it was out on the location. I think it was November, December. It was really, really cold,
it was cold. I remember that. It was
and
really, really cold.
you were on set. And so, was that uh, after how long did you move to New York that you came to that shoot?
Less than 6 months. I was pretty new to New York by the time we met.
Here you have this obnoxious photographer, Ejaz, who's making you do crazy, crazy things on set. So what's going on at that point in your mind?
Do you really want to be a makeup artist? I was like, there's easier way to make money. Are you sure you want to do this? I had a whole meltdown too the first couple of months here because it was like I gave up my big old apartment in Philadelphia to live in tiny tiny New York, and I didn't have my living things situated. But I moved. I started doing fashion when I got here. So as the retail thing is happening, I'm networking and I'm making connections and building relationships, and we started doing yeah, I started doing some mostly fashion in the beginning. It was mostly editorial because I'm coming off of like working with you, um, doing all the fashion stuff, and then God, how did I end up at Mac? Because Mac is they gave me that was also a really good opportunity. I think I got Mac at just at the right time.
So when I met you and we started working together, one thing that definitely stood out uh, between you and other makeup artists that I was working with is that you were a artist yourself. When I say artist, you were sketching, and
Yeah, I was a painter. Yep, I sketch. Yeah,
your sketches were what got me because they were phenomenal. And so, is that does how much of that helps being a makeup artist?
picking up on being able to do makeup happened pretty quickly because I went to art school, like a BSA. I was already a painter, and sort of the concept for me was all right. Well, here's this as a painter, you got this two-dimensional canvas. You got to give it depth. You got to make it look like something. And the face was already all the dimensions were there. It was just all highlight. The other thing too is I had photography classes, so I understood lighting a bit. And then even after I met you, and I might have got I might have. I think it was either you or Alden. It was one of you guys I asked about. I wanted to understand how you guys, because when you guys would look at the picture, you guys, you don't talk about the makeup. You guys are talking about light. So I wanted to understand your verbiage better. So even when I got here, I kept sort of doing some. One of you guys sent me like a tutorial or something online about lighting class, different types of lighting.
It wasn't me. It had to be Alden, and also I think you and Alden grew to be good friends. So
And we had a lot of wild times in the city. But yeah, no, yeah, I think it was all. He gave me the tutorial, the lighting thing, um, and that helped out immensely understanding composition. So that way, I can communicate better with the photographers or whoever I'm shooting with. Um, but I think it is really helpful to like have if you don't have a fine art background as a makeup artist, it's not a necessary thing, but I do think it helps to pick up the skill, pick up the skill, and then pick up a point of view or style or whatever you want to call it, really faster.
you started from special effects, and then you got into makeup. Is that how it went for you?
In college, one of my classes for industrial design was special effects. So I had already had some background on mold making, and it's industrial design, so I knew a bit about mold making and sculpting and things like that. And when I got here, I was sort of I was booked for a lot, especially when I started doing indie films um, with my really good friend Kelly Coleman. Very talented special effects makeup artist, and she taught me a lot as well. But yeah, I did start off doing that. I mean, and I kind of kept it in the background, but I think for like money reasons, I decided to be like, look, this fashion thing is at the time we were making a decent amount of money doing fashion, um, and so I was like, all right, well, let me lean into that because that's what's paying. And I just got to New York. I didn't have a shop or anything like that, and
Normally people come to New York and they do everything possible to get into fashion. I know fashion is a cult, and I know getting into fashion is really, really challenging and difficult. But you had a smooth sailing. How did that happen?
I think what really got it going was sort of two parts. Like one, working for Mac, and when I got to Mac in New York, and that is sort of like the tail end of like uh, that. Well, I don't know now. I guess I've been gone for so long. I hope they still have their artistry programs, but their artistry programs did help a lot in terms of connecting. Like they had for the artists that are like super into not sales for lack of they was just sort of more into like the craft of doing makeup. They would put us on these specialized teams and send us out to like all of these fashion shows that the brand had sponsored. um and so through that I got to sort of work with uh agents, makeup artists that were already signed to agencies. um I've done stuff with like Val Garland and Dick Page and uh Kabuki, like all those like big artists from like the late '90s, early 2000s, and a lot of them even have like shows now on like Netflix. But I got firsthand experience working with them, and then through Mac, I ended up making connections with a few of these artists and working for different agencies, and it just sort of built my way up through that. But it was all through like just making solid connections.
People just come in, they think they're going to conquer the world, they stay here for a year, 2 years. New York spits them out. So, how did you? get to become a New Yorker, so to speak? Now you've been here for how many years?
Almost 20.
So how did
Almost 20. So two things. Insanity. Jobs like this, like when it's hard, you kind of any sane person would get out of it. Like they would just you have to really love it. Again, there's easier ways to make money. If you don't love it and have a drive and passion for it, you'll burn out too quick. Also, my upbringing too. I mean, think about like our high school is like going to a college. So as a kid, I had like a really crazy work ethic because of my schedule back then. I'm like, I went to, like we went to school like at a ridiculous early hour in the morning, and then we weren't done until like I think I had to be there by like 7:30 or something real early in the morning like that. And then we didn't get out until like 4 because it's academic and art. And then I had a job even back then. I had like a day job. So after school, I would go to work, and then after work, I come home and I either had like an essay or math to do, or social studies, or a painting, or a drawing, or a photography project, or so I will say that did sort of build me up to have the stamina for like when things got I can handle sort of a big workload. And then the other part too is, and I think this is most important, even for, well, not most important, but high up there on the list, um, is you gotta, God, how do I say this? For lack of a better word, it's almost like you have to be the popular kid in school when you're in set almost like you do kind of had gotta have a bit of this like gravitas, this thing where like people want to work with you, which I recognized early on. It was like it was either, somebody who was just, either really funny or have big personality, or like, or it's something of like the artists who were getting work. I noticed there was something about them outside the artistry where like the crew wants you around, like the client wants you to be around, like you're adding something more to the shoot than just your technical skill of being able to execute the look. That's what worked for me. That that's how I sort of like worked my way up.
We won't speak about your up times now, but let's just talk about your down times when you were
Mhm.
totally depressed. You're like, what the hell am I doing in New York City? Why am I here?
A lot of those, a lot of times like that.
Me, one, what still kept you here? And number two, can you tell me how did you get that energy to fight it off?
Anything in the arts, I think that's constant. Like that's always. I mean, even most recently, I mean, you got the writer strike and everything, and then before that was COVID. Um, you sort of encounter those ups and downs, but again, like I don't recommend this. I never felt like I had a choice. Like I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. When the work was there, or even when the work wasn't there, like I sort of always moved with the mindset of like, what well, it's going to happen for me one day. Like this will be like I always knew it was going to happen. I had my down moment. I remember one time working at Mac, there was like a film crew, filming outside the store, and I'm watching the makeup and hair people run back and forth, and I was like, man, it's so cool. And I'm like literally got my like face smashed against the window with like one meaningful tear roll. Like, why am I here? And I want to be there. This is so cruel. But yeah, and then you have times where like you hit like I remember one time I did my taxes and they were like, you don't make enough money to write any of this off. Like this looks like a hobby, not a career. And I was like, yikes, I gotta push a little bit harder. Um, Yeah, those tough times though. But I think the same thing though too. I did sort of was fortunate enough that I surrounded myself with people who encouraged me. And that helps too, having a community of everybody, especially up here in New York. But I barely knew anybody. So if you build a community of people who you like genuinely gel with. When things are bad, we lift each other up.
It was basically not giving up on yourself.
Oh yeah, totally.
Were you doing makeup first in the film industry, or were you doing special effects in the film industry?
I had a friend of mine who would always be like, "Hey, you know, like the NYU students, are they're looking for makeup like makeup artists, almost like a test shoot. So it's for free. They don't have any money. I did little light special effects on the first movie that I did, like very like tattoo cover. Um, but it was mainly straight makeup. The first couple of things, um, and then when did I start doing like effects seriously? Like it was just sort of like off and on every now and then kind of a thing for the it was so light and it was difficult to do here in New York because I didn't have to shop or anything. I don't think it was until um I, I met Kelly Coleman, which is so funny. We're great friends, and cut to we're both in the union. I'm at Law and Order, organized crime. She's at Law and Order, um, the original Law and Order, and we're great friends. But the effects stuff didn't really kick off until um, I met her. Up until then, it was sort of like out of the kit, like running gun kind of thing. Like like I just didn't have the space to do like molds or anything like that. Like,
So now you are doing makeup, you are doing special effects.
yeah,
What, what has happened to your unbelievably amazing sketching?
during COVID, I started painting again, and yeah, just for friends, like what stuff, whatever they want around the house, whatever. Um, but yeah, the sketching still happens. It's so funny in fashion. That's how I got. I think that drew people in too with the sketching. Same thing. I remember one makeup artist that I used to assist. I became one of her first assistants because she was like, "Who is that weirdo in the corner? Why is he drawing while I'm talking?" They were like, "Oh, that's Shaun." And then I showed her the drawing, and that was my way of taking notes. Like I would literally draw out the eyeball, like shade it out. Okay, so she wants it darker here. Da, da, da. I would just draw sections of the face, and then there would be like karaoke's or something that I would be playing around with idea wise in the background. But the sketches still exist. I would like to do more with them, but I haven't. I've done like a few T-shirts for friends of mine. Some really cool portrait stuff that I played with in the computer. Like I'll hand draw it and I'll take it in the computer, and it'll still look like a hand drawing, but I mess with sort of the proportions to get it exactly like the person.
You've met a lot of people. You've created a family in New York, without creating a family. You've created a family of
Yeah,
friends, and I think that's what New York is all about. New York is about creating your own set of family, whether they are, really your family or you make them your family.
yeah, a
And you've done,
chosen family. Yeah,
yeah, and you've done that, and you've, started doing good paid jobs and creatively what you want to do. Tell us about the moment of when you got into, when you got the phone call or you got your email regarding winning the Emmy Awards.
I was like, oh, we were working on pose, and this is during COVID. And while that's when like the buzz came around. Like, look, we're gonna submit you, um, you know, for an Emmy. So like they knew that they wanted to go for the award. There's a lot of campaigning involved with all of that. So at first I was just kind of like, look, we just got out of COVID. And I just gotten in the union. I wasn't in the union for very long before I won the Emmy. I think I got it to be the first or second year of me being in the union. And by the way, this is I got two Emmy nominations. This is but I won one. I got and the first Emmy nomination was a special effects thing that I did for Samantha Bee. And I remember them saying, "Oh, for that one, you're gonna get submitted." But we were up against Game of Thrones that year, and I was just like, "I am not winning this for special effects against no Game of Thrones." It was like a sketch comedy. You know, it looked cool, but it was still, not Game of Thrones. And then so for Pose, I remember having a moment where I was like, you know what? I just kind of came here for the money, but fuck it, if we're being watched that way, let me bring my A game, and I worked really, really hard on that project. So again, this is all during COVID, and I was quite lazy about getting my second vaccination shot. I was just like, look, I'll get there. Um, because I think at that time we were only mandatory for us to get the one shot. So any event, I ended up getting it, but the amount of time it wasn't, I didn't have it long enough before the Emmy started, so I couldn't actually attend. But I was like, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna, celebrate with my peoples if we win, and if we don't win, I'm still gonna celebrate with my people. Like this is, it's a big thing. Um, and my friend, my very, very good friend, D'Angelo Thompson, who also is a Emmy winning makeup artist, and he had a boutique agency. He was probably one of the people that, like, every time you called him, I was available. I was working for his agency doing stuff for like MTV and the Food Network, and lots of commercials with D'Angelo. But we're sitting there just having a drink out in LA in his apartment and just talking. And he goes, you know, you want to have some good luck. Maybe you should go over and pick my Emmy up. Maybe you might win if you're touching an Emmy. So I walk over to his Emmy. And as I lean down to grab it, I get a text message from my friend Tim Harvey, who was in the hair department, and he's like, "Bitch, you won." And it was very surreal. Um, yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was surreal. I couldn't believe it. Met up with the team afterwards. Held the Emmy. We did the pictures. We went out. But yeah, it was pretty freaking unreal. Also, too, I was like, I believe in we can manifest and stuff. I remember writing down a list of everything I wanted to do in New York as a makeup artist, and I lost it. Couldn't find it, and I think I moved, and it fell out of a sketchbook or something. I reread the list. I was like, "Oh my god, you've done everything on this list, and then you passed it. Like you did more." Um, so I'm like, in a way, I'm like, maybe I manifested this ending.
Sure you did, because you had goals and you were not willing to give up. You stuck to it no matter what happened. You were there for yourself all the time.
Yeah.
But now you are a Emmy Award winner, makeup artist, and you're doing everything that you had on your to-do list for yourself in New York. What's next?
I don't know what's next. Oh, I do more movies. I would like to do more movies.
Sean, if I may suggest something to put on your list, I think you should definitely put modeling or acting, because because
Everybody says that
you
acting,
are
or they want me
you
to
are
do.
throwing away your good looks, Sean. And I just say, God's given it to you. Might as well take advantage of it.
That's my mom and dad's remix. That's not me. They did this. No, yeah, they want me to. Everybody's like, "Oh, you should do 15 minutes. Like you're so funny." Or you, and I like people. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I'll give it a shot. I mean, why not? I'm already in the business, and I'm hanging out with all the actors anyway.
Not everybody has the jawline and cheekbones like you, Sean.
That is true. My dad's are bigger than mine, though. You can see it from the back. It's massive cheekbones. Um, yeah. Well, I did get signed to like a little small boutique agency, and Lord, me loving makeup so much. I remember the one time they called me to go for a reading for a commercial, and I was like, "No, if I'm on this, I think I was working for the Food Network at the time, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna do." And I could have taken a day off to go and do it, but I didn't. Um, I just didn't. And then when she told me how much I ended up, because I didn't go, um, the agent texted me, she's like, well, that's too bad. And then she gave me the numbers, and I was like, oh my God, that's like way more than what I made. Especially at that time, like it would have taken me, oh, like a year. So I'm being dramatic, but it would take a couple of months to make that kind of money as a makeup artist. And there would have been royalties attached to it because it was a speaking thing. But yeah, I was too dedicated to makeup.
You are
But
here.
don't worry, look, like I said, I'm not done. I can still do all of that. And I'm interested in it. I'm just, you know what it is? I'm like, after all of that, that whole journey and me playing, I'm like, I don't want to do any starting from square one. Like now, I'm just like, I just want to, like, I like it now. And I'm in a really, because of me building my relationships, I'm able to like still be able to sustain myself just off of doing this. I mean, the writer's strike happened, Broadway kept going. I used my contacts and reached out to a couple of friends and sort of did a pivot. And now I'm doing Wicked on Broadway. Like my nails are still green from last night. Um, doing the makeup for yeah, for that. Um, there's a lot of ways. My friends would always be like, "We envy the job that you have because you can go from like, I don't have a job, I'm a freelancer, you don't have anything to like, um, the next day, my calendar can go from like blank to like, oh, and now I'm booked for like, 2 weeks solid, kind of a thing."
What would be your advice to someone who is sitting somewhere not in New York and he or she are like contemplating, should I go to New York? Should I not go to New York? What should I do? How do I get into it? And so on.
Do research about where you want to be. I don't recommend doing exactly what I did, where I just sort of just got up and moved on a whim. I would say spend time in those cities because for some of my friends that came here early on, this wasn't their thing. They were sort of better LA fit, where they're doing ton, a lot more special effects and like um, sort of movie types stuff. We had that over here in New York, but you want to sort of do more of that, and then also too, it gives you if you spend time in these cities. I would say like Chicago, Atlanta, New York, obviously LA. Like Chicago has tons of advertising. Maybe if that's sort of you, but like spend time in these places, get immersed in the culture. These things make things too easy for people now because back in the day, like if you wanted to be a part of a scene or a part of anything creative, you had to physically put yourself there and sort of experience it. Now you got the social medias, and all you got to do is just sort of like look through your phone and you're instantly here in those places. But I do think it lacks a little something because you don't get the real world experience and sort of your idea of what this is going to be through the gaze of social media. Um, so I do think it's important to like geographically put yourself in those spaces and just get a feel to see what feels right for you. Like some people love it LA, other people love it better in New York. You know, I have tons of friends who love it in Atlanta, and they're making all those Marvel movies down there right now. Try your best to really practice the technical part of this. I think it's a little too easy to like sort of look up a YouTube tutorial a few times if you don't have like experience with being able to if you don't know what like and textures of certain makeups are like how that's going to be applied. You're not going to get that from you know a tutorial. You got to get that from actually getting there and playing in it. I hated sales, but what I liked about I kept the job. The job was never about making the brand money. Like I think I was and sometimes to my to the brand's dismay, they knew I wasn't there for making them money or being a top salesperson. I was there because I had an endless supply of people I could practice on, different ages, different skin textures, different colors, um, and different personalities. That part too. Like I did learn how to because I was coming up in service. I learned how to style step with different personalities, and that ability to be able to shift or pivot when you're faced with like challenging situations or challenging personalities. I'll say, which happens a lot in entertainment.
I believe that a makeup artist plays two roles on set. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and one is, of course, the technical aspects, which you say to the young ones that you should practice, practice, practice.
Practice. Like, 10,000 hour rule. It's a thing.
Right.
It's a thing. Oh, and also too, the practicing, um, speaks to that drive thing. Then you don't burn out as quickly. Because listen, I've met people who I'm like their skill set out the gate with like younger artists. I'm like just in the beginning, I'm like blown away. I'm like, oh God, I wish I could have. It took me years to be able to do that. And you're just doing it. And they can fall in that pitfall where they burn out too quickly because they don't have that stamina built up from doing it over and over again, and being faced with all types of wacky, crazy obstacles, and not burning out.
But there's something that nobody speaks much about, which I have noticed in my career, what makeup artists do and why I value them even more than their real skills, and that is being a therapist to the actress or the model. What what do you speak about? How do you speak about that?
We
How
can be
does a young person know to do that?
yeah, we can be amateur therapists for sure. I call us like our amateur therapists. We're not technically qualified, but I mean, we can be a ear, a good sounding board, and everybody has their own little thing. I think you mean it's sort of like that personal touch that makeup artists have, where we sort of get people to open up and relax and have fun with the day because we have fun jobs. But everybody has a different thing. My thing was humor mostly, like being silly, or being really so hyper focused on the technical part that people are like, "Oh, I want to work with this guy over here," because I'm like, "Oh, he's drawing and he's really being thoughtful about um, whatever it is we're making." But I have other friends who their thing is like, they're just eh, zen, at the candles and this super uh, relaxed. I have other, I know it's a few artists that are like, they um, people like how sharp they. I don't want to say mean or attitude, no, but they do sort of have like this sort of edginess, and they're gonna get the good job done kind of a thing, like a no nonsense kind of almost. So everybody's got a different personal thing that does that, where like people. But yeah, it is a little therapy thing. Um, I
From
don't know why we all do that though. That part I don't know. I have no
from
idea what we
my
all.
from my experience, I have to say that 99% of the makeup artists that I have worked with, and you being one of them as well, you guys have this technique, or the model comes to you in a horrible mood, but when you send her back to me to photograph or to film, she's in a good mood. I'm like, what do you guys do to them?
You don't know me in front, and I don't know them, and we're not a part or connected to their real life. But now they have a moment where they just get to just let it all out, um, and you know, yeah, it is a little like therapy in that sense. I'm scared to say like, well, yeah, we're all therapists because we aren't all. No, you're not gonna go for that. We're amateur therapists.
I have seen Shaun grow as an artist, as a human, as a person, of course, for the better. Not that he wasn't a good person, but I think he was just very shy and timid. And as far as I am concerned,
I was scared.
what I have to say about this gentleman here is he has done a 360 and he is amazing. And he is one story that you can come to New York and survive it and actually conquer it. So, Shaun, thanks for getting on. I really appreciate it, and I'll speak to you soon.
I'll see you soon.